Hi, I'm Barry Mitchell. Welcome to Simply Science. Today we're going to rock your world at the American Museum of Natural History's Hall of Meteorites. A little later, we'll discuss the science behind the movie Don't Look Up with the museum's Dr. Denton Abel. But first, a breakthrough in the world of organ transplants. Doctors recently performed the first pig-to-human heart transplant. When asked, "How do you feel, sir?" the patient said, "Cured." Here's Mike Gilliam.
He is doing better than we expected. His heart, which I'm responsible for, is doing very well.
Doctors at the University of Maryland School of Medicine feel good about the progress David Bennett is making after receiving a transplanted, genetically modified heart from a pig. It's the first time an organ from a gene-edited pig has been transplanted into a human, and doctors are hoping that this type of transplant, called xenotransplantation, the process of grafting or transplanting organs or tissues between members of different species, will help with one of the biggest problems facing those needing transplants: a lack of organs. Half of those waiting for an organ die before getting one. Dr. Bartley Griffith performed Bennett's heart transplant.
He is remarkably alert. When I get to the point of the window in front of his room, he's usually aware, right? He kind of knows what's going on, and he'll give me a wave. And he'll usually beckon me, and then he'll want to tell me he wants to go home. When can I go home?
And more than a month after the surgery, so far so good.
We're feeling progressively confident. We are ahead of issues with respect to heart rejection. For a while, months maybe. We are very concerned that infection may be our biggest next challenge. Not that we are concerned there's anything, right now brewing, but an experienced transplanter always knows infection, rejection. When you suppress for rejection, you open the door for infection.
Part of the process involves changing the genetic makeup of the donor pig so that the organs have human DNA and are not immediately rejected by the body. The first of its kind emergency surgery came about when the 57-year-old Bennett was deemed not eligible for a human heart transplant because in the past he failed to follow doctors' orders, missed follow-up appointments, and didn't take his medication regularly. He also has a criminal history and served prison time. When confronted with a choice between death and the experimental procedure, Bennett was all in and agreed to the transplant. But doctors had to address a number of issues.
The porcine heart is not used to human blood pressure. Pig runs a little lower in blood pressure, and just like we advise our patients with hypertension, high blood pressure, that we see in the clinics, we will be treating our patient so that his inclination to have a higher blood pressure will be lessened by medication, because we don't want to expose this heart to an unusually high pressure that it's not used to.
The field of xenotransplantation is growing. Here at NYU Langone Medical Center, they've been doing transplants for years and recently had success with a different type of xenotransplant. In September, doctors at NYU successfully transplanted the kidney from a genetically modified pig into a brain-dead organ donor.
The way this unfolded was there was a donor. The family had consented for donation of organs, but they were unable to place those organs. I explained, what we were planning on doing, and that this was an unusual thing. They probably hadn't heard of this opportunity before, but they immediately felt like this is something that their loved one would have wanted, and because she was a very caring individual.
Dr. Montgomery, who is the director of the NYU Langone Transplant Institute, knows quite a bit about transplants. He himself is a heart transplant recipient. He says this work with genetically modified pigs is very important and promising.
One of the reasons that the pig was chosen as the species that would be used for xenotransplantation, first of all, they're relatively easy to genetically modify, and also they're roughly, the same weight and size.
The kidney was transplanted, and it immediately functioned and performed for the 54-hour experiment, producing urine.
It tells us that a pig kidney can function normally in a human for several days. It tells us that a pig kidney can be transplanted into human without an immediate, rejection. And those two things, I think, are really critical to, giving us the confidence that we can move this out of the non-human primate into human trials.
I'm Mike Gilliam for Simply Science.
34 tons of iron right here. This is actually part of a much larger meteorite that fell to Earth thousands of years ago. Now, Hollywood loves to frighten us with doomsday scenarios about asteroid and comet strikes. But NASA is taking practical steps right now to keep space junk where it belongs, in space. Sorry.
This comet is what we call a planet killer.
There's a 100% chance that we're all going to die.
Whoa, Jennifer Lawrence, take it easy. The government ignored your warnings in Don't Look Up. But in real life, NASA's DART mission was launched in November 2021 to practice saving Earth from asteroid annihilation.
Liftoff, Falcon 9 with the DART mission, on the way for humanity's first ever planetary defense test mission.
DART is the Double Asteroid Redirection Test mission.
Dr. Denton Abel of the American Museum of Natural History says the golf cart-sized kinetic impactor will slam into a small, harmless asteroid in September to try to knock the asteroid slightly off course.
The asteroid is called Didymos, and it has a moonlet, which is much smaller, that is the target of the DART mission.
And that moonlet is called Dimorphos.
It won't do much to change the moonlet's orbit, but it'll be enough to demonstrate how we can move a body from where it is to some new place and changing its velocity. This is a test of how we might deflect an asteroid or a comet that's on its way to the Earth.
Can a comet slam into Earth and damage Earth the way an asteroid does?
Absolutely.
Asteroids are made of metals and rock anywhere from Volkswagen size to about 329 miles in diameter. Comets are icy bodies of frozen gases, rock, and dust.
Comets, if they're big, are very, very dangerous. In fact, there's a hit movie out now called Don't Look Up.
Dr. Abel says the movie is justified in depicting the killer comet as relatively small.
Harder to see coming, a smaller target if you wanted to actually do something about it. Well, it's not even 10 kilometers. That's tiny. Well, it's not. Ask the dinosaurs. Oh, excuse me, they're gone. If we know a long time ahead that something's going around the sun is going to hit the Earth, we could go and paint it white as the solar wind, and even as sunlight hits it, it pushes that body because it reflects the sunlight.
I interviewed City Tech's professor Gregory Matloff about a decade ago, and he was all about the solar sails.
The solar sail is a means of space propulsion. It's a very thin sheet of metallicized plastic that is pushed by the pressure of sunlight. Basic purpose of a solar sail in this application is to move an asteroid, not necessarily by direct contact. One way that it could do it is simply by changing the reflectivity of the asteroid itself. And the pressure of photons from the sun bouncing upon it can thereby alter its orbit a little bit.
He was interested in also in lasers as well, and anything that can impart energy to a body can move it.
What about nuclear warheads?
If we can't do anything else, it's better to be hit by a bunch of small rocks than a single large rock. The size of a school bus, okay. The size of a aircraft carrier, not okay.
When will we know if the DART project was successful.
We will know very rapidly because we'll be watching and we'll see the orbit of the moonlet change with time.
I have my own solution. Want to hear it?
Absolutely.
We just let the greenhouse gases continue to accumulate in the upper atmosphere, and nothing will be able to get through.
Well, we see impact craters on Venus, and it's a greenhouse planet. So things that are big don't care.
Why did the chicken cross the road? To join Rent-A-Coop. Yes, now you can have live-in chickens and enjoy fresh eggs every day. Here's Maria of Ami, who's always sunny side up.
My family and I decided to try Rent-A-Coop, and we chose the chick hatching program, where we got to hang out with 2 chicks while 7 eggs are incubating.
The hatching program itself is 4 weeks because the eggs take 3 weeks to hatch. And so then you want to have at least a week to spend with the new babies.
For those who rent an actual coop, you receive fully grown chickens, which provide you with a sustainable source of food, giving you fresh eggs on a daily basis.
We do also have a 2-week program where you can just rent chicks if you are not quite ready for the full hatching experience, because that involves more science and some people want to just dip their toes in and have just the baby chicks first.
These 3 programs give you very clear instructions on what to do every step of the way. Plus, you get educational material for children. And with the candling light, you get to witness up close the cycle of a fertilized egg.
You can actually see the veins developing inside the egg and seeing the chicks growing and developing.
Whoa, that's so cool.
And while you snuggle with 2 fast-growing chicks, the incubator does the work.
It automatically turns the eggs, similar to how a mama hen would be sitting on her eggs, warming them up. And once they start wiggling around, when they're almost ready to hatch, they'll kind of break that air pocket open.
And then a very exhausted chick comes to life. A new dynamic will soon begin between the chicks.
When you introduce them to the older ones, they'll need to reestablish the pecking order. So they do have a whole social system.
Diana explains she often has to remind customers the difference between the eggs you hatch and the eggs you eat.
If there is no rooster, then there can be no babies because the eggs are not fertilized.
And if you chose the coop rental, you will be getting a dozen fresh eggs per week. Not only that, you will have great gardeners in your yard, keeping weeds and pest populations in check.
It's fun to go out and collect the eggs and just kind of see where your food comes from, and caring for these animals that have their own personalities and really come to trust you. And they actually can recognize faces. When you go out to them, they come up to you and they cluck and they talk to you.
Rent-A-Coop had been mostly serving schools until the pandemic, when they saw a huge increase in families wanting to rent.
And we saw an even bigger influx of people who wanted backyard chickens and wanted to be a little more sustainable. And so it was a struggle just to meet all the demands, but we worked really hard, and we've gotten so much feedback from people that it's brought the whole neighborhood together, especially now when we're in an ever-growing virtual world. This is just kind of a way to just touch back with nature.
Rest assured, the chicks and chicken are well taken care of when the program ends. You also have the option to permanently adopt them at the end of your rental period.
We keep them, they go to other families. We do sell them as well, but we also raise them. We use them in our backyard chicken program. You know, they have a place to come home to. So it's just a responsible way of doing it as well.
Rent-A-Coop has also been an innovator in creating high-quality products that make caring for chickens an easy experience.
Our products are really what sustain the ability to do this enjoyable program and keep it at a reasonable price point.
My whole family, children and grown-ups, truly enjoyed caring for the chicks and watching them come to life. For Simply Science, I'm Maria of Ami.
Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Here's Andrew Falzone.
This giant fish isn't just the largest fish alive today, it's also a shark, and this full-size replica is one of the many highlights of the new special exhibit called Sharks at the American Museum of Natural History. It can reach lengths of 40 feet long, which is the size of 2 school buses, but the mighty whale shark is actually a gentle giant and has no teeth. It floats in the exhibit next to 2 of the smallest sharks, the dwarf lantern shark and the pocket shark. And while its mouth is large enough to inhale a human, it prefers to feast on microscopic animals called plankton. It's also a major driver of ecotourism around the world, and if that helped change your mind just a little bit about sharks, then exhibit curator Dr. John Sparks says you're getting the message.
Based, how many people are in the water every summer, your chances of being attacked by a shark are so slim.
But most sharks do have teeth, like the tiger shark, smooth hammerhead, and mako. There's even a life-size great white on display, yet with all those teeth, we're still not on a shark's dinner menu. Just seems the general consensus is if they wanted to hunt us, they easily could, but we're just too bony and not enough calories for them.
Exactly, yeah. It's like most of these, the errant attacks, it's one bite and then they'll take off. They'll realize it's something they didn't want.
The exhibit is organized into different sections to help tell the story of sharks of all sorts, starting with predator or prey, sharks with super senses, and sharks from around the world.
Undoubtedly, the highlight of the exhibit is the life-size megalodon behind me, which could grow up to 50 feet long, making even the largest humans look bite-sized.
And the life-size cutout of the megalodon jaws prove that point and make for a great photo. Just make sure to bring an extra wide-angle lens. It's the first friendly face you'll encounter at the exhibit. You can learn about how a hammerhead uses his swept-wing head to find its prey.
We want to stress the long evolutionary history, how we're still learning more with every fossil that's found. It's a really rich evolutionary history, and there's actually far more species that are extinct, fossil species, than there are extant species. So it's an incredible diversity through long evolutionary time. And I think that tempered with the fact that we're wiping them out.
Sharks runs until August 14th, 2022, so make your plans to plunge into the world of sharks. I'm Andrew Falzone for Simply Science.
A while back, Donna Hanover introduced us to the Billion Oyster Project, an initiative to restore protective oyster reefs to New York Harbor. Now Donna serves up a report about oyster research at Hudson River Park.
More than 11 million juvenile oysters have completed their first months as residents of the Hudson River off Lower Manhattan. They went down in 200 metal orbs, cages, and mesh wraps. Carrie Roble is vice president of the Hudson River Park Trust River Project.
So these juvenile oysters come all the way from Maine, and they were seeded in tanks by our partners at Billion Oyster Project in Red Hook. Billion Oyster Project was a key partner from the get-go, and they helped to seed all of the gabions and reef balls that are now in the waters in Hudson River Park.
What's a gabion?
Gabions are large cages with a mesh insert that has shell collected from restaurants around the city and are seeded with juvenile oysters. A reef ball is a large concrete structure that has a lot of nooks and crannies in it and has also been seeded with these juvenile oysters.
She says oysters are important because each one filters and cleans a lot of water, improving the health of the river. They also clump onto each other, creating reefs that are habitats for finfish like sea bass and other species. How will the oyster reefs get bigger and bigger?
Oyster larvae loves to settle on adult oysters. They get cues in the system that tell them that this is a good place to grow because those oysters have been successful.
Once oysters attach, they don't move. And when the oyster reefs get large, they can help protect against storm surge.
Right now, our river's bottom is fairly silted over and just a lot of soft sediment. So the oyster reefs are adding that dimension that slows down the energy of that storm surge, hopefully reducing the impacts of flooding in our city.
Spring is the time to pull up the installations, measure the oysters to see how well they grew, and drop them back in. Toward fall, they'll be checked again to see if baby oysters were produced. There was a time when New York's waters were full of oysters, but they were over-harvested. and poisoned by too much sewage in the water, a problem that continues.
200 years ago in New York, every street corner, instead of a souvlaki stand or a hot dog stand, had an oyster cart. People would eat them fried or pickled or in stew or whatever. Are these oysters going to be for eating?
So no, these oysters are not for eating. With rain, we unfortunately receive untreated sewage into our local waterways. And therefore, of course, the water that the oysters are filtering as they're eating is also filled with pollutants. And therefore, bacteria is still a major challenge and is one of the reasons why we do not recommend eating the oysters that we're putting into the river.
But Hudson River Park Trust, Billion Oyster Project, and other partners in this research do want help from the public. You can check out their websites to volunteer.
In the course of their research, the Hudson River Park Trust has found some wild oysters that are very large. This one has actually become famous. It's called Big, appropriately, because it's 8.6 inches and 1.9 pounds.
In fact, it's the largest oyster that we've seen in the New York City harbor for over a century.
But the goal is not really giant oysters, it's big oyster reefs. And cities all along the U.S. coastline are trying similar experiments, hoping for cleaner water, better habitats, and stronger protection in storms. I'm Donna Hanover for Simply Science.
Climate change. We hear about it all the time. We know it's a bad thing, and we kinda, sorta know what it's about. Well, here's our Ari Goldberg to set the record straight.
We all know climate change is happening. Ice caps are shrinking, oceans are warming, more extreme weather events, all that good news. But how do we know? Well, it turns out the science of how we measure it isn't all that complicated to wrap your head around. The first thing to measure, temperature itself. We've had the technology to make direct measurements of the Earth's surface as a whole since around 1880. For earlier eras, we can actually get a pretty good idea of the Earth's climate by using a number of indirect measurements, temperature proxies. For instance, layers of ice form differently at different climate conditions. So, bore a hole in an Antarctic ice sheet, and you can get a pretty good picture of climate over the ages. Think of it like tree rings, but for the Earth. And obviously, things have gotten warmer. That's the easy part. So here's where the fun begins, because nowadays, we can also measure the activity of the sun, and after the sunlight reaches Earth, measure how much radiation is escaping back out to space. For the last several decades, the data shows that while the sun's energy reaching Earth has stayed roughly constant, less radiation is leaving the Earth. This tells scientists we have an increasingly insulating atmosphere, an increasing greenhouse effect. More is coming in than is getting out, because the atmosphere is keeping more and more in. But okay, there's a lot of different things in our atmosphere after all. Other greenhouse gases too. So how do we know it's carbon dioxide specifically that's driving that insulation? Well, it turns out we can measure the kind of energy leaving the Earth too. Think about a glow-in-the-dark sticker. It absorbs a certain wavelength of light energy, then emits a certain glow, releasing energy. A similar principle goes on in our atmosphere. Different materials absorb different wavelengths of energy, including CO2. About 51% of visible sunlight is absorbed at the Earth's surface. Some of that bounces back up as invisible infrared heat radiation. Some will escape Earth, but more and more is being absorbed by these insulating molecules in the air, and then re-emitted back down to Earth. And it turns out, when we measure the wavelengths of energy that are escaping Earth, what's escaping less and less is specifically the energy wavelengths that CO2 absorbs. Therefore, we know for a fact that carbon dioxide is what's keeping that energy in, what's increasing the insulation of the atmosphere. Now, that being said, how do we know that carbon dioxide is from human activity? I mean, carbon is natural. We exhale it, wildfires, volcanoes. It all has to do with measuring carbon isotopes, that is, different versions of carbon. Different carbon isotopes exist in different ratios depending where they are. For instance, plants have a specific ratio of isotopes carbon-12, carbon-13, and carbon-14 in them. However, Carbon-14 is radioactive, meaning it's unstable. It will eventually decay and become carbon-12. And fossil fuels, being millions of years old, have no carbon-14 left. It's all decayed to carbon-12. So guess what kind of carbon we see increasing in the atmosphere? Yep, the ratio of carbon-12 is what's rising, consistent with the almost 40 billion tons of carbon-12 rich CO2 we burn in fossil fuels annually. Numbers which no other carbon source, like wildfires or volcanoes, are able to produce. Okay, so if we take all of that together, we know a lot of things. We know that the Earth is warming. We know that it's warming because of an increasingly insulating atmosphere. We know that CO2 is the driver behind that. And finally, we know that burning fossil fuels is the source of that CO2. Add it all up, and it's a dire warning for the planet. But it's also a fascinating look into how we can accurately measure this warning in the world around us. For Simply Science, I'm Ari Goldberg.
And that's our show. Our thanks to the American Museum of Natural History, and a quick reminder, we'd love to hear from you on social media. I'm Barry Mitchell. Stay safe. We need the viewers. See you next time on Simply Science.